Hey guys, I'm Amanda. I'm from Tutoring and I teach primary and secondary English. Today we're going to have a little chat about Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, which is a text we're going to cover in mainly English and literature. So basically, I'm going to do a little crash course series that's basically going to teach you guys about what it's about, the plot and the characters. So in this video, we're just going to have a brief run over what the historical context is, as well as the social context. So stay tuned. Alright, so the first thing we have to talk about is the social context. So what is happening in the world of the novel and why do the characters act the way they do? So basically, in Austen's time, people were expected, well specifically women, they were expected to stay inside their house and do wifely chores, such as embroidery, cleaning the house, and basically looking after the men. So obviously, the characters in the novel, they follow these rules that society has put on them. And obviously, because the mother is basically the second in command of the house, she is the one that wants to sell her daughters off to wealthy suitors, which is basically who they're going to marry in the future. And back then, this was the norm, okay? So women were expected to marry young, and if you married at an old age, say if you were like 25 and you married then, that's considered bad and there's probably something wrong with you because you married old. So obviously if you were to marry at say age 15 to 16, that's ideal, like you'd make a perfect wife. As well as the household chores, women had minimal education, so all they knew was cooking, cleaning and primping themselves to be perfect wives for their future husbands. And obviously back in this time, so this was around the 1700s to 1800s, marriage was a really big deal, yeah? Like I said before, if you weren't married at a certain age, you were looked down upon in society and you were looked down as a kind of hermit, like no one wanted to touch you because there was probably something wrong with you, like seriously wrong, that made other men turn away from you. So that was just the norm back then. Marriage was the most major thing. You even see in the very beginning of the novel, the very first line, it talks about marriage. That it is a truth universally acknowledged that a wealthy man with a big fortune is in want of a wife. So straight away in the first line of the novel, Austen addresses marriage as a major thing. We also see how important marriage is through one of the characters. Her name is Charlotte and she's the best friend of our protagonist Elizabeth Bennet, which we'll talk about later on. But basically what Charlotte does is she marries a man who has a bit of a fortune just because she's getting old and she needs security in her life. So basically she's entered into a loveless marriage with this man she doesn't even know, just so she can have safety in her life. So the communication back then, in this century, it was really restricted in the sense that women would communicate with men through their mothers or fathers. So as we can see through the protagonist Elizabeth Bennet, she is not in communication with a lot of men because her mum is the one who tries to pair her up with other dudes, basically. And the same thing goes with her sisters. Basically, the most they can get to in terms of flirting is standing from far away in a ballroom and like giggling and like staring at guys from across the room. Another thing we should probably mention in terms of the social context is the way the characters spoke back then is a lot more dense than the way we speak now. Because obviously the way we speak now, it's very chill, very casual, but back then, even if you were middle class or lower class, you'd speak in a way that was very long sentence-like. So every time they wanted to say, go to Parkmore or something, they would say, my greatest yearning in life is to make an attendance at Parkmore and ingest some nice halal snack packs. Like, we would not say that now, right? We'd just be like, oh, I'm gonna go to Parkmore, get some HSP. Yeah. So obviously, the way they spoke back then was very different. So when you guys read the novel, I think it would be a great idea if you had a dictionary next to you, just so you can check up on what on earth they're talking about. Alright, the next thing we're going to talk about in this video is the historical context. So where are we in terms of the timeline and what's going on in the world? Now, I think it's really important to remember that this is set in the 1700s and the 1800s, roughly between there. And Austen never really specifically says what date it is in terms of what year, but she does have some references to the Napoleonic War. The Napoleonic War was set in 1797 all the way through to 1815. So we can roughly assume that what's happening in the novel is around this time. And we see references to the Napoleonic War through characters such as George Wickham, which we'll get to later on, as he is a soldier and there are a couple more soldiers that rock up into town and the girls basically fawn over them. So those are some more references that we can pick up on and assume that that is when the time is. Austen references about 5 real places that still exist. These places are Brighton, London, Hertfordshire, Derbyshire and Kent. So basically all of these places are real places that still exist, and a lot of these characters in the novel live in these areas, and we see them travel from location to location to location. So hopefully you guys can keep your eyes peeled for those locations when you read the book. Alrighty guys, so that brings us to the very end of our video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys got something out of it. And if you guys liked anything in particular, or if you have any other questions, don't be afraid to drop a comment down below and we're more than happy to help you guys out. But if you guys would like some more in-person advice and more tips and tricks, don't be afraid to check out our website at www.sactutoring.com, and you can check out which classes are available and convenient for you guys. And don't forget to follow our socials. We're available on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Sac Tutoring. And yeah, don't be afraid to drop in. We're very nice and friendly. And we'll see you guys next time on Sac Tutoring.